Good morning, my neighbors. This is Tales of Recovery, and welcome back to more conversations on trauma, grief, and the evolution of healing. I have been in the past 6 months training with Gabor Mate and Sadaram in a training called Compassionate Inquiry, where is a somatic base, somatic meaning inside of the body, not just cognitively making sense of what's going on in in your thoughts, but really getting into the body to feel a lot of emotions that to really connect with your emotions. Because, of course, as a society, and we have been really disconnected, taught to disconnect from emotions. Number one. Number two, actually, that might be number two. The number one is, as little children, we had to disconnect from our emotions in order to be safe. In an ideal culture and an ideal intelligence of emotions upbringing, our caregivers would have been okay with feeling their own emotions and allowing for us to be, as little babies, held and listened to when we were crying or upset or needed something. And as we continue to grow up, there was a lot of situations where you might have felt scared or awkward or super sad, but you didn't have the capacity to tell anyone. One, because you were, who the hell is going to know at 5 years old that I need to express, unless it's being modeled by an adult. I need to express that I feel really scared or awkward, or that I don't like this. I don't like when you touch my hair. I don't like when you're like making me go kiss all of these old ladies to say, hello, how do you do? Like most of us Mexicans grew up. And so there's all of these messages that come into the body that say, freeze, don't feel this, suppress it, do something else instead. And one of the things that compassionate inquiry does, or somatic experience practices do, is they allow you to really, really slow down, which is hard to do in the way we live, but it's doable. And it's the way to heal, is to slow down. There is no instant fix. I know we all want to pop a pill and get it over with, but we really need to slow down, breathe through, create enough space and safety for these emotions to come up. And that's very difficult. Most of the time, what we're doing is not wanting to feel it, not completely aware that they're even there to feel, which is the bigger problem. Because what we end up doing is we minimize and we dampen. So minimization and dampening of these things might sound like this. Oh, you're exaggerating. Oh, just let it go. What do you mean? Everything's great. We have so much. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful it's not me and it's them over there. And then dampening might also sound like, that was so long ago. Or like, I don't feel any of that. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't feel any sorrow or anger or I'm fine. And so the thing that I ask myself, my clients, and my friends when we talk about these certain things is, how is that working out for you? Because when we don't go in and feel these things, there are some very neurotic and crazy actions that we do. Like, I made a reel the other day talking about how sometimes we don't feel these emotions and they're in like this express cooking pot, and all of a sudden, wah, it just explodes because you open it before you were supposed to let the steam out. And of course you burn yourself, the kids, everybody, the dog, anybody around you, because you just lose your shit. Losing your shit is an intelligent response, because the body is saying, no more of this dampening, no more of this minimization, because the body wants to heal itself. See, once we begin to realize how much healing we can do on our own in our own tissues, because the issues are in the tissues, in our own bodies, in our own um, sovereignty. I think that's the way you say it. We take some of this power back that has been taken from us because of all these beginning things of, repressing emotions and repressing needs and desires. That is nobody's fault. Like, we're not blaming mom, grandma, great grandmama. We're actually helping ourselves to recover this deep love and connection to mom, grandma, great grandmama, or dad, uncle, great grandma, whatever, because of when we heal and when we allow these things to come through. And all trauma work is grief work, by the way. All trauma work is grief work. Most therapy is grief work, because you realize some ideas that you had about life that aren't really true. And when you slow down to feel it, there's going to be some grief. Grief is part of something that's wired in our brain. We need grief. It's one of the things that we have in our system, just like joy, grief, hunger, lust, so that you can, co-create. One of the things that we have in our bodies that need to enter the system in order for us to move forward and evolve and be well is grief. And many people think, well, I don't need to grieve because nobody close to me has died. And that's some intense grieving when somebody dies. But there's grief about many, many small little things. You can consider grief as something that you lose. It's a loss. So, even when your kids grow up, it's a little bit of a grief, because holy shit, now they don't need me driving them around anymore. Now they don't know, now they're on their own. Now they actually don't want to hang out. And it's like this, and it's a loss, and it's a valid form of grief. Certain dreams, certain ideas that didn't come through, that's a loss. You can grieve. Certain situations that you thought were normal, like getting spanked when you were little, or having your parents tell you that you can't do this, or that certain needs weren't met emotionally, and you had to power through, and you're resilient, and you can do this, but there's sadness stuck in the body. That is grief. And then when we are for ourselves the gift of allowing this grief to come up and come through, our bodies get a sense of relief, because that's how they're wired. They want this relief. We are called to practice grief and to relieve. Your ancestors were drumming around the fire, doing warrior cries, beating their feet on the ground, really connected to the earth, and weeping in the temazcal, in the sweat lodge, sweating it out, screaming it out, because these are practices that are mechanically embodied, put into this computer system of your body. And as you cry and weep and grieve, what happens afterwards? I'll tell you what happens afterwards. You have a really good night's sleep. You're grateful to be alive. The joy that counterbalances this grief feeling, this grief processing, comes through, and all of a sudden your eyes are a little more open to the brightness of the sky and of the flowers, and to the connection that you have with a particular friend or to yourself. And so this past month was very intense for a lot of us, these past 45 days. And all of a sudden, oh, Happy New Year, Gregorian year, everything is back to normal. Everybody get your shit together and, drink your green juice and go to the gym. I, for one, I'm still in winter mode. I don't know about this Gregorian Happy New Year shit. It's still dark in my life, and I'm still in winter mode. Come spring, we'll see about the daily green juices again. And it's too cold, really, for green juices right now. It's more tea time for me in this body, in the winter that I'm still in, and not in the Gregorian Happy New Year bullshit. And this past 45 days, whatever days, 60 days, that we get so pressured into going, celebrating, pretending everything's great, happy this, happy that, buy everybody gifts and gather. And there's some beautiful things about gathering with your loved ones, of course, because this, well, because you love, because of the heart expansion and connection and laughter. And that's what we like to do, exchange um, presence, of other people in our lives that are your family or your loved ones or your friends, whatever. But also, there's also this chip in the memory of this computer that you have, that this is the time where you're supposed to be happy to each other and be memorable, and so you behave in a certain way, right? You act polite, you bring a gift, you cook something and show up, and hey, how's everything? And so there's this performance, right? There's this acting for so many years, even though sometimes you didn't even want to go. You didn't even think about it. You just went to the family, to the in-laws, to whatever, or you were taken as a child, and these meals happen, and people sang songs, or people got drunk, and people got whatever the hell happened. It was something that you did no matter what, because it's the season. And so this is now ingrained in your brain that this is the season where you get together and you have to be happy and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of us and a lot of people continue to do this without really digging deep and noticing, maybe I don't really like this. And I feel really tired. You know how many people I've spoken to that are just exhausted and so glad that it's over? El Maratón de Guadalupe. And there were some beautiful moments. There's always, just like grief and joy, there's always like beautiful and oh, so ugly. That's just how life is. Finding the equanimity and the balance in between those, and being able to just kind of be slow and breathing through it is, I think, one of the beautiful skills to have as a human. But also to acknowledge that there was grief and there was loss, because maybe it's not like you thought it, like you were programmed that it was supposed to be, or maybe there's some people that aren't there anymore that you really miss. And also maybe there's things that you realized as you grow and expand, and especially if you're doing some type of conscious healing work, you realize that there's a lot more bullshit than you thought it was, because you're no longer minimizing or dampening. And that's hard to do. That's why one of the messages here on this podcast of recovering is getting your life back, recovering your soul back, recovering what is working for you, what is good for you, and not just for everybody else. Because that's part of the training, right? Help everybody else and leave yourself behind. That's how you survive childhood, by the way. Most of us did. You can now step into a knowing that you don't want to dampen or minimize this grief anymore. And so going countercultural is, congratulations if you're doing countercultural. Congratulations to a lot of us. And also, man, it's hard. But we can do hard things. And the main message here about grief and trauma and somatics is that you're not alone. Number one, you're not alone. Number two, I believe really in my heart that this is the way we're going to change the world, is pressing on to leaving, minimizing, and dampening, and getting really raw and real about what's important and what's real, and how we can connect to this computer that wants to grieve and wants to feel joy and wants to stop fucking pretending already. The pretending is exhausting, and I think a lot of us grieve that we just have been pretending for so long. And now that things are getting real, the realization that this pretending is exhausting, and it doesn't really get you the love you want anyways, because only you can give yourself that. And as you give yourself that love and acceptance, then your heart cracks open to receive real love and acceptance. Otherwise, you're just in this protection mode, or this like puppy, will you please feed me? Will you please love me? And then I'll have value mode, which is another, trauma response. And I'll say it again, people think trauma is just a horrible big T trauma, like a veteran that went to the war and had to experience all of that horror, or, like a big accident or a deep sexual abuse when you're a child, which is horrible. All of those are big T traumas. And even those can be really healed. But the little trauma, which is really not something that happened to you, but how your body responded inside of you to you being neglected, or to you being bullied, or to your parents drinking all the time, or to your grandparents being kind of horrible, or a teacher in school minimizing you, or making fun of you, or being, made fun of because of your race or because of your gender. Somebody was asking me the other day at this workshop that I went to, how was it like to be a woman in the 21st century? What are the good things and the bad things? And I thought, I'm 50, growing up in Mexico was really hard. For example, I remember you could not walk down the street without some motherfucker telling you, hey, screaming at you. And it was like, the fuck is wrong with you? I'm not over here screaming at you, telling you, hey, whatever, you hot body or you fat fuck. It was just, I remember getting so angry one time, like literally picking up a rock and throw it to this dude because he was saying something about mamacita or this or that. So there was a lot of, if you were, these little skimpy suits, well, you were quote unquote asking for it. So, and I never really liked wearing skimpy shit. I felt more comfortable wearing, baggy pants, and definitely not ever heels. I had cowboy boots. But see, some of these things I started to think about in this workshop about what was it like growing up as a woman in this 21st century. And I live in San Diego, California, Southern California, and I cross the border every day, Tijuana, San Diego, Tijuana, San Diego. So I had the best of both worlds, freedom and little bikinis, no one gives a shit. But then you go to TJ and you have to cover up, or else you're a hooker. Or if you're walking down the street like that, you're going to get cat calls, and you're going to have to maybe, tell these guys to fuck off. And then what that exposes you to. And so maybe I didn't get raped, but there's certain things that happen in my body since I was little, these messages of, this, you better not enjoy your body or show it to anybody, or be careful because you're going to get in trouble. And that's what I mean by some of these subtler traumas that we minimize or dampen. Oh, whatever, that's just how it was. Yes, was it really? Because now you find yourself body shaming yourself, body shaming your daughter's body shaming other people's body. Even if you don't say it out loud, but you're definitely thinking it. You don't want to be too fat. You don't want to be too wobbly. You don't want to be that. Instead of really honoring your body as a temple and wanting it to be healthy and strong so that you can move and work and, tend to the land and to feel all of these emotions little by little in the sweat lodge, in therapy, and just standing watching a movie, and actually here's a good point about if you're not really doing somatic experience work. When you watch a sad movie and you cry and you cry and you cry, you're actually doing some grief work. It's a beautiful thing to allow your tears to come through, and we feel good after it, and you disassociate it from the grief that you might actually have to work on. But at least your body is processing these emotions, these sadness. It doesn't always have to make sense why you're crying. What does have to make sense is that you honor your body while you're crying, and that you allow and give yourself this birthright. We're recovering our birthright. Oh, I can feel this. And I'm not some crazy crybaby, annoying little bitch, which is what the programming might be. No, you're a sentient being, sovereign in your body, allowing for these emotions to be felt, to have space, and to be processed and alchemized so that you can then open your heart for even more joy. And little by little, your capacity expands. It's not going to start right away being this huge, you know. I mean, even as you work on this for many, many years, I still find myself surprised at some of the things that I noticed that when I was little, I went through, I held through emotionally, not really realizing how hard it was, to feel when you're a little girl, to feel that, you're alone, or that you're not meeting somebody's mark, or that you're anxious about this in school and you just have to do it anyway. I mean, there's so many little things that we can go back and tend to that then allow our body to be more at ease in our 50s, 40s, 30s, 60s, 70s, whatever. The work never ends, but it's good to work because, I mean, one of my motivations is really health and wellness and liberation. And that's the main point of therapy, right? Of somatic practice, of getting it. Even I think of life as liberation. We want to live freely, honoring ourselves and the planet and those around us. And I encourage 100% responsibility. The blame game doesn't really work because it gets you outside of yourself, and it's part of this minimization and dampening. So coming in and owning our grief, owning our responsibility, that nobody else is gonna, like, we don't have to wait for anybody else to behave in order for us to feel worthy or beautiful or good. No, man, that's not gonna happen. 100% responsible and sovereign is for us to do, and then we work it out with others, and then we can have difficult conversations uh, or go your own separate ways, or show up in with a different perspective to these gatherings next year. Maybe we can slow it down next year, or not jump into it and really tend. They're very tender moments, and we're still in it, right? It's still pretty tender. I don't know if we come out of this shit until spring. The seasons are here for us to follow and learn from. The Gregorian calendar shit just keeps us in this wheel of hustle and bustle. And so to make a note of that is a liberation in itself. So we're not going to force anyone's agenda on our bodies anymore. At least I'm not. I'm still in winter mode here. And come February, where things might change. Things will change. Things are always changing. That's the one thing we can be for sure about, is change. I do want to offer an invitation for a retreat, an experience, a weekend of doing all of this work that I'm kind of just talking about, somatic and feeling and allowing our bodies to really remember what they're capable of, to stop holding them back, to stop repressing them. At Al Latir de mi Tambor, to the beat of my drum retreat in Valle de Guadalupe, where I'll be guiding us in a lot of these mindfulness practices and somatic practices and compassionate inquiry, to really get curious about what have we been doing to our bodies and what do we want to be in our bodies. We will have, of course, a sacred medicine ceremony with psilocybin, which is psychotherapy on steroids. What happens in these ancestral medicine journeys is that a lot of these emotions that we haven't allowed ourselves to feel come through, and you really get to feel and see what you haven't been wanting to feel and see, but also what you haven't been allowed to, or even known that you had permission to feel and see. It's such a powerful experience in a container of safety and groundedness, and of knowing how to stay in your body and feel really safe. So safety is the main thing. And then we'll go into the sweat lodge, which is another phenomenal infrared volcanic rock heat that is like you're going into the womb of the mother. So it's a time of rebirthing. They're really good really powerful, actually, practices for healing, for allowing grief. Of course, most of us cry in the sweat lodge. That's okay. Or you scream or you sing really loud and you're letting these emotions come through. And when you come out, resting, joy, relief. So if you're looking for some relief, we still have 2 spots available for this retreat. Actually 3. And you can look at my website to get more information or send me a message. This is a women's only event. The men and women and everybody else in between event is in May. And that's going to be in Punta Monterrey, which is a beautiful beach down by Puerto Vallarta. That is a longer retreat. That's a 5-day, super powerful experience. That more information on that is coming through. But for now, we have February, and for now, we also have grief and praise circles here coming up. So if you want to come and practice some of this grief and see what I'm talking about, you can join me and Sarah Knapp on January 28th, I think, at Reunify Yoga. It's the last Saturday in January at Reunify Yoga in Ocean Beach, California. Thank you, everyone, for listening. The Tales of Recovery. Please share, subscribe, send your messages, and we'll see you next time.